Okay, we're live now.
All right, thank you. I'll call this meeting of the Animal Services Committee meeting to order. It's March 8th, 1 p.m. 2021. Could you do a roll call, please, Mr. Everson?
Sure thing. Commissioner Young.
Present.
And Commissioner Talaferro.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Burrell. There is one commissioner logging on right now. I'm not sure who that is. Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Thank you. And Commissioner Johnson. Okay, it looks like at the moment you have 3 of 5 present.
Okay.
And the quorum.
All right. Next is our invocation, I believe. And then could I ask Commissioner Taliaferro to do the pledge? And I'll lead us in an invocation. It'll be the Lord's Prayer, and you should feel free to join me if you like. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Let us stand for the pledge. All civilians, place your hand over your heart. Military and first responders may render a hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Clerk, is the next item voting on allowing this. Hi, Commissioner Burrell. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Johnson is also logging in right now, so you should have a full committee.
Perfect. Welcome, Commissioner Johnson, as well. Will you do the next item on the agenda, please?
Absolutely. The next item, I'm not aware of any agenda additions other than what's on the agenda.
No, we don't have any more.
Great.
I don't think. Does anyone else want to offer one? No. Okay.
Great. Then we'll just need a motion to approve consideration of the items.
So moved.
Second.
And okay, great. Let's vote on that, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
And Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries with 5 in support and none in opposition. At this point, I'll just draw your attention to the certificate of teleconference that is attached. There's no action required. And that brings us to public comments. Would you like me to give the phone number out for public comments?
Yes, please.
Great. That phone number is 226-6596. Again, 318-226-6596 if somebody would like to make a public comment. And I should state we have not received any electronic public comments.
Mr. Everson, what was that? I had somebody text me saying they can't call in. What's that number?
It's 318-226-6596. It looks like our available lines might be full. We have been getting a lot of calls from, for rental assistance. So that could be a possibility.
Do we have another number anyone could call if they wanted to call in?
Well, they should still be able to get through. It just looks like momentarily, every now and then there might just be several calls that come in at once. So let me see.
Okay, well, in that case, let's continue. And if somebody calls in to talk about something related to this committee, we'll consider pausing then and taking their call. How about that?
That sounds good. So the next item then, we will let y'all know if we receive another call. The next item then is new business, where we have a review of the Animal Services Board and Shelter Advisory Board structure.
Great. So I'll start talking about this just for a second, and then I'd like to hear from the administration and Mr. Samuel about these two boards. We just had a vote to appoint some people to one of these boards, and that was the first time I became really very familiar with them. Commissioner Taliaferro had been talking to me about the boards also, and wondering exactly what they did and if the public was aware of what they did, and if they need to be two boards or if it should be one board with a sub board, or if everything is fine just the way it is right now. And so I just called this meeting so that we could all learn about that together. And I thought I would ask the administration to ask us, to explain to us what the boards do now, and then ask for commissioners' thoughts and ideas about improvements that we might make to that structure or not. So do any commissioners want to speak first before I ask the administration to talk to us? Okay, well, Dr.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Good to see everyone. First of all, let me clarify something for you all. We have an animal services board, and that board is spelled out in details in our parish code of ordinance, section 8-5. It tells you how the board is set up and the workings of the board. The second thing is, we never had a shelter advisory board. There's no such thing as a shelter advisory board. Never in the history of the parish we had such a board. What we do have is an animal services committee that we are currently convening right now. And this committee was set up back in 2010 to review the current code of ordinance and revise it. We spent a year going through the ordinance and making revisions. On that board at that time, the board had selected, the commission had appointed Ms. Candy Peavy, Ms. Ashley Del Rey, Dan Keel, Reed Ebar, Cynthia Keith, Attorney Donna Frazier was part of that process, and the Animal Services Director and Assistant Director, and the clerk, and myself. We spent a whole year, every week meeting, going through all of the ordinance. And then when we got that completed, several recommendations was made to the commission, and unfortunately, none of it was adopted. So this board was created to go through the revisions of the ordinance. Prior to that, Commissioner David Cox had met with the director of the Animal Services Department and myself, and we had went through a previous revision of it. So we thought we would open it up and expand that, and including some of the citizens from the animal welfare community. So that was the intent of this Animal Services Board. But as I said earlier, the Animal Services Board is spelled out in details in section 8-5 of the Code of Ordinance. The Animal Services Committee, we've been meeting ad hoc per se. It was something that was created and it just kept going. And then it turned into something that we would entertain certain issues that citizens would bring forth to us. And that setting, and that was it. It was never a fully chartered committee and brought it in our code of ordinances at all. So pretty much that's what we have. We have an Animal Services Board, and we have an Animal Services Committee, but we had never had a shelter board. Now was a shelter board ever required or needed in the parish of Caddo?
I see. Thank you, Dr. Wolfman. Can I ask a question? So you said that you made several recommendations, or a lot of recommendations, after a thorough review of animal care policies.
Yes, sir.
That weren't adopted.
That's correct.
And when did you make those recommendations?
It was 3 or 4 years ago, sir. It was 4 years ago, roughly.
Okay. And this committee. This committee that we're meeting on now was originally tasked with going through those to adopt them one by one or in groups, if we choose. And how much progress has this committee made on that project?
Very little. Because
okay, I don't think I've seen the document. I don't think I've seen your recommendations before.
Yeah, no. It's prior to you coming onto the commission.
Sure. Yeah.
This was done years ago. And for whatever reason,
well, I would love to see them now if you still have them.
Yeah, that's fine, because among those recommendations, Commissioner Young, was that we put in place mandatory pet registration and a host of other things that the committee had thought would make accountability and stem the flow of animals coming into the shelter. But at that time, the commission did not have the appetite to make any of those those recommendations, but they were made, and we should have that as part of our historical records what those changes were, suggestions were at the time. But that was the reason why this Animal Services Committee was put together, to go through the ordinance and make sure the ordinance meet current standards, and make any recommendations. And recommendations were made, but just not accepted.
Okay, and so I've seen the text Animal Shelter Advisory Board.
No, sir.
And you're saying that board is not real?
No, sir. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, Commissioner Young, this committee, we met in earnest to discuss the expectations of us providing services versus that of being a shelter. And out of that conversation, we were directed to take the name off the building shelter, because we were not a shelter. We were just a short stay, interim stay for animals to come, and we were not in the business of sheltering animals. We don't have the capacity or the resources to do that. So that's why we call ourselves now Animal Services and not Animal Shelter, because we want to
because it was a misnomer.
Expectations out there so that people wouldn't, realize that we are trying to run a shelter and we were not a shelter.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
We provide pallets of care.
So that's why you wouldn't need a shelter board, because you don't provide shelter services. You provide other animals.
That's correct. And we never had a shelter board from the inception of the Animal Services operations.
Okay. Terrific. Well, do any other commissioners have any questions?
Well, you don't see my hand.
Oh, I couldn't. Well, let me look on my list. I
might look like Mario's hand.
I see Commission's iPad. Yes. Commissioner Burrell.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I only had a couple of questions. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. Okay. I only had two questions in mind when we were talking about this shelter advisory board. I know we have a tendency to build more bureaucracy than we need to. And I know you guys being my counterparts, y'all not for more bureaucracy. I guess my question would be, and not being sarcastic, is what would be the shelter advisory board's duties that is separate from what the animal advisory board does? That's my first question. What will be the shelter advisory board's duties that is separate from the animal advisory board? My second question would be, what official authority will the shelter advisory board have that neither the committee nor the animal shelter board already have? Because other than that, we're duplicating services and taking up people's time that is not necessary that the other committee or board can do. You understand?
Let me try to answer that as a paraphrase of what Dr. Wilson said, and then he can correct me if I'm wrong, and that'll help me practice explaining it to other people, because I'm sure they'll ask. We don't have a shelter advisory board. We don't provide shelter services. We provide other animal services. So we don't need a shelter advisory board. And so they wouldn't have any authority.
That's correct.
Sounds like a good summation, Mr. Chairman.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that was my whole point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. How about you, Commissioner Taliaferro? Do you have any? Wait, let me look at my list.
Look at your list first, and I'll go. I think.
Sorry.
I think you got.
So I got Commissioner iPad. Donna Frazier is next. Attorney Frazier, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Commissioner, I just wanted to point out that actually the committee that was formed to review the ordinances did make recommendations, and the ordinances were changed. However, like say for instance, if you look in the ordinances, you'll see where vaccination registration was in there. After that was placed in there, there was a hue and cry by the citizens that they did not want to have a quote unquote animal tax. So that has not been enforced, but the changes to the ordinance were passed as a result of that committee, which included some citizens meeting.
Yeah.
So there were some changes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Point of clarification.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Based upon what Attorney Frazier just said, how does that change or affect the question that I asked?
It doesn't, Commissioner. That was, I guess, kind of an ad hoc committee that was appointed. You all have committees that are appointed by the commission president. When that was done, the commission president appointed a committee to which citizens were added. But after those ordinance changes were made, that committee was no longer needed. So it doesn't exist anymore.
And so that still does not require us to have what you call a shelter advisory board?
No, it does not. There is no shelter advisory board listed anywhere in your code of ordinances. And for there to actually be one, the commission would have to pass some legislation.
Well, that's what I thought. And I know that we hadn't done it since I've been on the commission. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next is Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just was going to say the part that Donna talked about just now on the past committee that we had. The other part is, I think I was sitting as president when we took the shelter off of the animal services building. And that was through a discussion that we had with a group of ladies that kept calling it a shelter, and the shelter should do this and the shelter should do that. And based upon the conversation, it was that we don't have a shelter. We have animal services. There are rules and regulations on how long animals stay there. They just can't stay there for months and years. They're there by days. And upon the termination of those days, the animal services workers are then directed to do certain things when that time expires. And that's because we get about 100, 200 dogs and cats a month in, or maybe more in. And so if you kept all of those, didn't do away with them, you would not have space. And so it's basically a holding tank until they can either be rescued, adopted, or either euthanized. And we try not to euthanize because our utilization rate has come down dramatically since I first came on. And we're utilizing more rescue and adoptions than anything else. So I was also going to say that we don't have a shelter advisory board because we don't even have a shelter. Thank you.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask the president, under those circumstances, then in terms of euthanasia, does our adoption policy and whatever that other one is, does it keep up with the number of animals that we have in there? I mean, do we adopt enough out and whatever else we do with them other than euthanize them? Does it keep up with them with that?
I'll let the director or the assistant director answer that question for you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We're utilizing the Pet Point data management system. It keeps up with every animal outcome we have, whether it be positive or negative. You have your adoptions, you have your TNR cats, you have animals that go to rescue, you have animals that are returned to owner, animals that die while in care, if one escapes. That is tracked, and all of those statistics are updated monthly to the parish website.
Oh, that sounds like more than we do for humans, but I'm new to this, so I guess I'll learn.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good question. Commissioner Johnson, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Taliaferro, you're next.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Wilson, back in, I came across a September 8th, 1992 letter from Janie Story Shadlick, I guess, and it has to do with the Caddo Parish Commission and the Caddo Parish Animal, what were they calling it? They were calling it, what was it? Citizens Advisory Committee. Do you know if we ever developed anything from that? And the reason I ask is it's still floating around, and basically it was a committee whose basic purpose was to offer sound professional advice, assistance to the commission, as well as to the director and employees of the shelter pertaining to animal care, animal psychology training, and it had a variety of people that were assigned to this. Also act as counsel and a sounding board on behalf of the commission to the general public, and to review present shelter procedure policies and so forth and so on. Basically it was an oversight committee, and that was in 1992. Of course, lots of water under the bridge since 1992. And I didn't know if anything, it looked like it was a definite citizens advisory committee that was established, because this person was charged with putting people on that board or on that committee. So my question is there anything under the Animal Services Committee or Animal Advisory Committee or board that would kind of, I guess, take this from 1992 or handle some of the similar charges, in this particular letter?
No, sir, Commissioner Taliaferro. I mean, that may have been another ad hoc situation.
Could have been.
And not been codified in any ordinances that we have that expresses that point of view direction. So I would say at that time, 1992, there may have been some issues going prevalent to that time.
Sure.
that they wanted citizens to be a part of, just like we did it when we created the current committee, Animal Services Committee, to help us review the charter. I mean, not the charter, but the code of ordinance for animal services. So it may have been something temporary in nature that went away. And the only explanation I would have, since I've been administrator going on 19 years, we have never had anything of that type created or utilized.
So do you think, in your professional opinion, based on the climate, and you're well aware, and so is Mr. Clark, the climate of the animal climate, basically, and let's just talk Caddo Parish, not necessarily nationally, although that does apply, that this would be beneficial to some degree to for either the advisory committee or the Animal Services Committee to more or less be a liaison between our animal services?
I think we already have that right now, and us having an Animal Services Committee, that we have commissioners a part of this, and we have had citizens come before this group many times, expressing certain wishes that they had desire, and it gave them a platform which was very public in nature, and it had more credibility than an ad hoc committee.
Understand.
So I would think that need is being met right now, and certainly I know things are changing climate-wise. But let me also say this too. My predecessor, I recall talking to him many times about animal services. Animal services really don't change. What has changed is the method by which people communicate. But animal services has always been an emotional, highly charged area. We have a problem where we have seen tremendous progress. Well, we had as much as 10,000 animals a year at one time. Now that's down to 6,000 animals unwanted that come into the shelter. And certainly we'll be here now until doomsday talking about this. unless we change how we do business in terms of putting legislation in place that make people more accountable, so we wouldn't get so many animals coming into the shelter in the first place. I mean, into the building in the first place.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I appreciate that. I don't have any further questions right now. Thank you.
If y'all don't
Thank
mind,
you, Commissioner Taliaferro.
I hate to interrupt. This is Jeff. I just wanted to let y'all know we do have a caller on the line. Would you like to take that call?
All right. I think if it's okay with everybody, since we were just talking about how this very committee connects us to the public, we should go ahead and just pause and take that public comment. And then would you mind waiting till after that to speak, Commissioner Chavez? Okay. Well, let's do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Michelle, could you go ahead and connect the caller?
Hello, ma'am. Okay, hold on one moment. I'm going to put you on speaker for your citizen's comment, and you have 3 minutes, okay? You're welcome. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, you can go ahead with your comment.
Okay, hello, my name is Carla White. I'm calling in on behalf of as a Caddo Parish citizen, but as well as I belong to 2 different animal organizations in the community. One I belong to is Good Samaritan Rescue, and it's a group of girls that we're strictly volunteer. We work to collect dog houses, especially for the winter time. We collect hay, wood chips from the citizens in our community, and we pass them out to people in need for shelter for their pets who are kept outside, most of those who are even chained up. So we do this on all of our own dime, our own time, our own gas. Again, we just collect the dog houses and pass them out. So, of course, during this snowstorm we had a couple weeks ago, we had to amp up our efforts, of course, and we were getting a lot of messages and phone calls that people were needing help, that animal control, we know they're shorthanded, but that they were not able to get out and assess the situation or help do anything. So we had to take on a lot of extra work, and we just do that because we want to. So we passed out over a dozen dog houses, all the way from one side of Caddo Parish to the northern part, and even into Bossier Parish. But our efforts were made fun of last week by Director Clark, poking fun at us that did we find any frozen dogs laying around. And we found that very insulting to our efforts that we do out of the goodness of our heart. And I just wanted to address that whether it's a rescue organization or animal related organization, we are working hard trying to help the community. We understand that Caddo Animal Services is busy and they're shorthanded and there's a lot of animals in need, but to not take, what we're doing out of the goodness of our heart and our volunteer time, take that in a laughing manner, to take that serious. We're trying to help, but to be taken seriously by Caddo Animal Services. I do appreciate an animal control officer was sent out to one location on Lexington Drive. I believe that was the Sunday the snowstorm was rolling in. We did have an animal control officer show up as we were delivering dog houses, and there were dogs running rampant everywhere. Numerous neighbors came out, told us that they called in animal control, that the dogs are just running rampant. They jumped the fence, that they can't be contained. One lady felt her son, whose handicap, was in danger because the dogs keep coming out, and she was afraid. But to my knowledge, one of the neighbors is still saying those dogs are at large. That's another subject. But I just want it to be recognized that there are groups, rescues in this area who are trying to help, who are trying to make a difference, and for us to be taken seriously and with respect.
Okay, Miss Carla, you have reached your time limit. Does that conclude your comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Thank you, Ms. White, for that comment. And I also want to thank our Animal Services Department and other groups around the parish for the hard work that they did during the unprecedented freeze that threatened so many pets, pipes, and plants. Commissioner Chavez, did you still want to speak? You were on the list earlier.
Chairman. Thanks, Chairman. I took my hand out for a minute because I thought you were going to ask for us to speak first. I wanted the citizens to be able to make the comments. I'm looking on the website. My only question is for administration. We don't have a CPAWS website, so to speak. If you look at Civic Source, it's underneath our services. However, there is not actually like a detailed list of the services that CPAWS offers. It's just the mission statement. I wanted to see if we can update that. I get a lot of messages, text messages, calls, emails about different things that people expect CPAWS to do. So I think it'd be very beneficial if we had proper communication to the public that outlined exactly what CPAWS does, what those services entail, for better lines of communication to the public to let them know what Animal Services actually does via those services. If we could look at implementing those on the website.
Okay.
Thank you, Director.
Yes, sir. We will, sir.
Okay. That's all. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Good point. Let's see.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Taliaferro, do you want to talk again, or
you're not seeing my hand? I take it.
I see your hand also, Commissioner Burrell.
No, sir,
Commissioner Taliaferro.
No, sir. I believe that's an old.
Before that's residual. Okay, Commissioner Burrell, please go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to apologize on behalf of whoever that citizen was to Miss White, because I know that it is not an easy job what they do, and they're not being compensated for because there's so many animals that's out there. Matter of fact, probably just before that storm, there was a dog roaming my neighborhood and came across the road at me, and it's a well-kept dog. So somebody, whoever dog it was, just didn't have it on the leash, or it got loose or something like that. And I know these type things are serious because I am afraid of, I wouldn't say afraid of dogs or animals. I once worked as a mail carrier, so I torn my pants as many days running from dogs. So I know that they can present a very threatening situation, but sometimes the public will make comments like that because they feel that more emphasis is placed on animals than they do humans. So I'm just telling Ms. White, don't be alarmed at insensitive comments, because people will do that from time to time. But we appreciate all that they do. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. I didn't know you were a mail carrier. That's pretty cool. So the clerk informs me that we have another caller. I'm going to just check our list. We don't have any more commissioners up to speak, so let's listen to this caller. And then if there's no more comments after that, then we could adjourn. Yeah. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you very much. And Michelle is connecting that caller right now.
Hello, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker. You'll have to state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your comment, okay? Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, you can go ahead with your comment.
Okay. I need to, this is Susan Botoff. I am a citizen of Caddo Parish, also I have a dog rescue that not like year and nonprofit. Basically the reason I'm calling is because I know it's like the white elephant. It's out there. Everybody's seen the video, the post about Ashton. I do have questions. I do. That was hard on our volunteer. They took the dog in her car. The dog did not die in her car. There's not a false statement out there. The dog was listed as a year old. So when we knew nothing about the dog. The dog was brought to Caddo Parish because somebody said, what do we do? We had never seen it, didn't know anything about it. We went up there Wednesday, which was already planned. And then we decided to go ahead and pull the dog, try to help it, because it's a year old. His stomach was up out. I mean, I just don't understand why it took so long. And then the vet report was at 10 o'clock. We were supposed to be contacted when the dog was ready to go. 10 o'clock that morning, the vet wrote all their comments, and we didn't get an email till 12:51, almost 3 hours later. And we were, being talked about that we are just trying to be heroes. I don't appreciate that. We came up there to assess some dogs, and why does an employee get to go and watch what we do? They weren't even there. Travis was standing right there with us. We got video, our own video of the dog, which I'll be requesting the video too. But we were asked to help with some burn dogs. We tried. I mean, we're trying to help. And we're basically being slapped in the face and called toxic. And I just don't appreciate it. It's okay. We'll survive. We got it in. But we didn't mention anybody's name. I do think that it was handled wrong from whoever brought the dog in at intake, whoever gave it its heartworm test, border pellet, who put it,
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you've reached your time.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good day.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Nations. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson, would you like to speak?
Yes, I appreciate it. Commissioners, as a general practice, the Animal Services Committee has been a very effective process, I believe, that we have utilized to make changes within our operations. And Attorney Frazier was right. The Citizen Advisory Group we had working with this committee did make some substantive change to the ordinances that we had. A lot of the major ones we thought would be impactful were not made. So we still would like to commission at some point in the future to help put some legislation in place for greater accountability. And we think that will help stem the flow of tide coming into the shelter. We desperately need that. Also, in all of our processes that where we had used to hire a director for the shelter, for example, for the animal services operations, we have used in the past, we have had 8 people in the last selection with Mr. Clark. We had Mr. Dan Keel, Dr. Everson, Cynthia Case, Stephanie Fallbaum, Candy Peavy, and Erica Bryan, Attorney Bernstein, and myself. We did a panel interview going back to 2006 when we hired Mr. Matt Pepper. We had a citizen group that worked with us to select a new director. Every decision I have made since I've been administrator to select a new director for the animal services operation always had civic involvement in it from the animal welfare community. We thought that made sense because they would partner, they would work closely with the director, and that partnership was very important to us. So the animal services in itself as a department is regulated by state statutes, parish ordinances, plus we utilize the industry standards to look at it at the operation, and it's probably one of the most audited department in all our government. They have been audited more than anybody else in government. So is it perfect? No, it probably will never be perfect. We're trying to work towards perfection. But I think as opposed to creating something new and duplicating what we have, I would highly suggest we use what we have in terms of this committee because it had teeth to it. and it kind of make the nonsense go away when we all in the room talking about what really makes sense. Because at the end of the day, we got to apply resources to whatever was brought up. And that's why we had to redirect the expectation of operation versus a shelter operation. We weren't trying to sell a false perception of what we were able to do. We have 6,000 animals coming through the shelter in a given year. And right now we got well over 170 animals right now every day. Sometimes that number is 200. So it's a daunting challenge to move that many animals in a small community like ours. We have to look towards our rescue groups and partner with them. And I think that's the best thing we have going, working with our rescue groups, doing a spay and neuter program. We have spent a lot of resources towards that endeavor. And I think we need to keep the expectations manageable. We will never be a clinic. And people look at us and say, y'all are doing clinical type things. Well, we don't have the resources to do clinical stuff. So we do the best we can. But the number one reason on all of this for animal services to exist is for public safety. That's the number one reason why we're here. And the funds we receive comes from the health fund tax, disease control, mosquito control. Those are the things that are pertinent to the community's well-being. So certainly, sorry about that. So certainly that's what the emphasis need to be. But I would say let's stick with what we have because it's been effective. Because at the end of the day, we're going to need you all to help us get the legislation passed, and any citizens can be a part of that process as well. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I think your words make sense. It sounds like you're describing our animal services facility a little bit more like a police station for animals rather than a nursing home for animals.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that makes sense, and it makes sense for the legal justification for our watching out for cats and dogs in the first place. I know that if my dogs ended up at the shelter, I would assume that they had gotten into trouble. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Commissioner Taliaferro, did you want to speak again?
Yes, I just have a couple of questions because, and it's a variety of areas though. Dr. Wilson and Mr. Clark, let's go back to legislation. Obviously, that's one of the charges for this particular committee. Based on your professional opinion, what would you like this committee to champion as far as legislation that would help us? And we understand the spay and neutering issues, yes, but is there any other issues, any other legislation that you would like for us to champion through our resources to assist in making CPAS more responsible, better focused, and yes, at the end of the day, more resourceful?
Yes, sir. Let me say this, and don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. Back in 2010, I had an opportunity to go to a conference, and the conference was being held in San Jose, California. And I know California is different than Louisiana. They have 3.4 million residents that live in that area. I went to the animal services building there. They only had 10 animals in the building. And I said, where's all the animals? I mean, this is a huge place. You got all these people. Surely there's more animals. They said, no, we hold people accountable here in our community. There's no such thing as a stray animal in the San Jose area. I said, how do y'all do that? He said, we had legislation to back up what we want to enforce. And there's mandatory pet registration. So when they just find someone pet running at large, they don't bring them to the building, they take them back to the owner. That's what we need to get, mandatory pet registration. It doesn't even have to be with us. It could be with a third-party vendor. So there are those type of vendors out there that provide that service. And we have to, there's some more things we'd like to bring to you all to make it more accountable for the people who have puppies and not give them out and not have them spayed or neutered, and this proliferation keeps continuing. We need to stop with mandatory pet registration, mandatory chipping of the animals, and if we can stop there and go from there, that would be a great start.
Do you believe, or this may be a question for Mr. Clark, is that, legislation is only as effective as our ability to enforce. So I know that there are citizens that say that we're not enforcing what we have on the books. Do you feel that we do have the resources that we could actually enforce, and would the ACOs be able to enforce the mandatory pet registration and or the I forgot what else you said.
Mandatory microchipping.
Mandatory chipping, mandatory chipping. I get all that. I love chipped animals. As a matter of fact, I think all of us get pleasure out of rescuing an animal and knowing that it's chipped, because at least we have a starting place to rehome that animal or return it to its rightful owner. So I'm all about that. I'm just asking, as part of my question is, do we have the resources to actually go out there and actively enforce the legislations that we have on the books and also additional legislation?
Yes, sir, because it's the same thing as police officers. Everyone is supposed to have car insurance, but unless you get pulled over, no one's going to check you for your car insurance. You know what I mean? So I think mandatory microchipping would be a really good thing for this area.
Okay. And moving along to a different subject matter, what's our live release rate now, Mr. Clark?
Right now for this month so far?
Yeah. Well, let's just go for the year.
For the year, it's 89.6 or something like that.
Okay. So at what live release rate would you be willing to classify us as a no-kill facility?
Me personally, I would never use that language.
Well,
because it can be misleading by saying no kill just because you're a 90% live release rate. That could be misleading.
I understand your statement on misleading, but people in the industry understand what a no-kill shelter is and the no-kill definition. They don't expect all animals to not be euthanized for humane reasons, for sickness, for injury, and so forth. So I think for people that are in the animal services or animal rescue business, they get LRR, and so to say that that it's confusing, I don't necessarily agree with that, but you may not use the term, but if you were to achieve that level, what would be that percentage that you would be willing to say, as a national definition, we have reached a no-kill acceptable live release rate?
Well, first
we're at 89 now, and so
we're at 89 right now. However, intake and the flow of animals have been inconsistent. So it's, you don't want to start utilizing such a term and then 4 months from now your intake boosts up and then you're not able to attain 90% or over 90%, and then you drop down below that.
Well, how do other facilities kind of, I don't want to say get around that, but how do other facilities become the designated no-kill facilities that have a lot more animals than we do? And I'm sure they have fluctuations, and nobody can predict that, but they still maintain that their live release rate is X amount of percent through fostering and other programs.
Well, even through fostering, you have to understand that is still not an outcome animal at that point. It's just not in the facility. So I mean, if we were above 90% for, I'd say, at least 6 months out of the year, then maybe going into that next year, that may be a phrase that may ring true. However, being 90% every other month, it's still not over 90% every month, unless you try to manipulate outcomes and stuff like that, which, we have data. We don't, I don't believe in doing that because everything is a public record anyway.
Okay. Who maintains right now, who's maintaining the Caddo Parish Animal Services and Mosquito Control social media platform?
Kim Warren, Mrs. Everett, and as a like a special request, our communications manager.
Okay, so as a concerned citizen myself, I know that the services that maintain social media platforms, I would really like us to take a hard look at what we're doing and basically what we're not doing. If you look at our social media platform for Caddo Parish Animal Services, there's nothing there. We don't comment, we don't update on our facility, we don't educate. We have some cheap looking videos of a sign on a wall. And you got to really scroll down. And then we go back as far as February 19th with an extremely high volume of calls to our emergency hotline, which we understand the winter update. But I would like us to be more proactive. This is just a suggestion, more proactive on our Facebook, on our social media web platform, to where we're educating people, we're keeping people informed. One of the biggest things out there, as you all know, because you handle calls just as much as I do, is that our communication process leaves something to be desired. And people just really want to know what's happening with their tax dollars, especially in the animal rescue committee, the animal services committee, community, excuse me. And I think we could do a much better job at keeping people informed on new programs that are going on, what we're doing to boost the live release rate. You're the director. You know exactly what people want to be informed about. So I would really like to see a little bit more input, in the platform itself. And so who do we assign? Dr. Wilson mentioned that we are working with a lot of rescue groups, and who is currently tasked. I know that people move around and are tasked with different things. Who's currently tasked with reaching out to our rescue groups within Caddo Parish, DeSoto Parish, and so forth right now?
That would be our current rescue coordinator, Mrs. Everett.
Okay. And how many rescues would you think that we're actually actively involved in networking with?
20 plus, okay. Easily.
So when we have adoptions or fosters to be needed, then we're reaching out to at least 20 plus rescues to see if they can take animals off our hands at any one particular time.
Well, we don't ask rescues to foster. We ask people to foster if it's an animal that's going out of state after it's tagged for a rescue or something like that. But local rescues and out of area rescues do help us out and pull a lot of animals.
Okay, but I guess my question is that out of the 20 plus rescues that we currently network with, if we have a transport going, obviously we reach out to those rescues to foster those animals before transport, right? Or we solicit those rescues to actually do the transporting themselves, correct?
We don't ask other rescue groups to foster animals that are going to another rescue.
No. My point is that if I'm a rescue group and I pull an animal from CPAS, I'm responsible for, typically, I have a plan for that animal to transport it someplace else.
Okay.
And that's my point I guess my question is that you said we're actually involved with reaching out if we have a need to clear our population, and we have animals that need to be adopted out or fostered. Are we actively contacting this 20 plus rescues to basically get rid of our animals? I know that doesn't sound right, but to minimize our population.
The main rescue group that we contact when we need fosters is Parish Paws.
But we don't have an agreement with them or anything, do we?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, they just happen to be readily available.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess that's about it. My main concern and Dr. Wilson and Mr. Clark addressed it, is that the legislation that we really can put forth to help y'all out. I think microchipping is a great thing. I mean, I have it in my dogs, I have it in my horses and so forth. and then also the pet registration. You know, if you don't attempt it, you can't really have an opportunity to measure it. So
Yes,
I think that's something that we definitely need to be working on. That's all for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And Commissioner Young, we do have one more.
So yes, the clerk tells me we have one more caller for comments, and in the spirit of keeping the public involved through this committee.
Okay, Michelle, can you connect the caller?
Hello, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to put you on speakerphone. You'll have to state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes, okay? You're welcome. Hold on 1 second. Okay, you can go ahead with your comment.
Hi, my name is Jill Brown, and I guess my question is going to be directed to Mr. Clark. And what I would like to know is, what is your standard procedure when you have dogs that are continuously at large? They are owned by a certain person within a neighborhood. They continuously are running at large all the time. I know that y'all have been out many times. I myself have actually contacted you via email, and when you did not respond to me back within 2 weeks, I finally had to contact my commissioner, and he sent you a copy of the email, and amazingly, you responded within 5 minutes. So, but my question to you is, what is your procedure? Because these dogs have been taken in animal services, and they have been released and released and released by you back to the homeowner, back to the dog owner, and y'all have one of them that is currently in doggy jail, and the other one is still at large. So I want to know, I mean, at what point do you say, okay, enough is enough? We're just going to take these dogs and try to get them a good home to where they can be taken care of by some responsible pet owners.
Does that conclude your comment?
Yes, it does.
Okay, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Brown. I know we don't normally respond directly to comments by citizens. Is that right, Commissioner Johnson? Is that what you were saying?
That's right. We don't respond directly on public comment.
Just to follow up to figure out what perhaps the answer to her question was the laws about at-large dogs and when they can be finally seized instead of being returned to their owners, and then perhaps one of us will be able to share that with Ms. Brown, who called in to ask. And let's see, does anybody else want to talk? I still see Commissioner and Chavez's hands up, but I think those are old. All right, well, so I would love to hear a motion to adjourn.
No, hey, Commissioner.
Oh, Commissioner Chavez. Yeah, did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Wilson, can you do the committee a favor? Can you email all your recommendations on the checklist of the desired legislations? I know we looked at this 3 years ago, but to bring Commissioner Young up to speed as the new chairman, I think it'd be valuable for him to get that piece of information.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. I'd also like to get, if you can email the committee members within, I'm going to go for the last 2 years, not just the last year, because obviously 2020 was very unique. So maybe the year prior information, all the, and you can redact any personal information of defendants, but any cruelty charges that the ACOs issued or at-large violations. And I want us to gauge what the ACOs are putting out there, because I'm going to be one of the commissioners that's against the microchipping and the pet registration, just as you've seen before, because I love my dog. My dog is already chipped. Nobody had to tell me to do that. I paid for it. My dog wears a collar at all times. He's got his name. He's got my phone number on it. And my worry is we're going to force the public to pay to register and chip their dogs. And the only people that are going to adhere to that legislation are the ones that already do it. So it's very similar to the gun registration to say what law-abiding citizens are registering their guns. We need gun control. Who's going to go enforce this when we have felons and criminals running the streets that are not supposed to have weapons, and they do? So the ones that I think it's going to hurt the most are the law-abiding citizens that are going to have to pay out of pocket for this forced legislation that we're putting on them with an attempt to fix our issue. Well, as it was stated, if our issue is that we're not enforcing the laws on the books that are incumbent, then how are we going to increase our enforcement on any introduced or new legislation that and of course, today's not that time for that, for the discussion on this. I want us to look at the checklist that you would like us to adhere to or put forth new legislation so that the committee members can discuss this amongst themselves, as well as the public, to see what do we need to do, because it's apparent we have an issue. We have an issue with enforcement. We have an issue with registration. And I'd like the committee to take this next couple of months to work on these things collectively, to find a better solution that fits the whole, the ACOs, the legislators, and the public, and specifically the law-abiding public. I don't want the people that love their animals getting put undue burden on them to pay additional money or fines when it's something simple as they left their door open one day and the dog ran out. But like these repeat offenders that Miss Brown is speaking of, where she knows the dog probably by name, but they see the same dog out over and over again and nothing ever happens to that person. But this pet owner, I'm sure, would be the first person to get a fine and pay it when the other person wouldn't, and nothing would happen to that person. So I want to find out how we're going to fix those issues. Thank you, Chairman. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Those are good points. I would welcome that information too, and we can talk about some of your objections in detail over the coming weeks. Let's see. It looks like Commissioner Taliaferro is still on the board, but that might be old. Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's residual.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I just want to say that as commissioners, we put a lot of burden on Animal Services, the director and his staff, to do things that is not in policies. If we want those things to be done in policies, we're going to have to change the policy in order for it to be enforced. If he was going outside of policies and procedures, then we'll have commissioners coming to him and saying, you shouldn't have done that because it's not in the policy. And if he's following the policy and the public doesn't know what the policy is because a commissioner doesn't take the time to explain what the policy is, then it does us no good. So either we need to change the policies to what you want to think it should be, and hopefully we'll get enough votes to get it done, or you're going to have to learn what the policies are so that when the public come and ask you all these questions about why is Animal Services not doing this, why they won't do this, why this has happened and why that happens, then you'll know and you'll be able to tell them because our policy says this is what they're supposed to do and why they're supposed to do it this way. And it would cut down on a lot of confusion. We can put a whole bunch of stuff on the website, but everybody doesn't go to our website. So it's just the fact that, we're going to have to educate ourselves to what the policies are if people are constantly calling you about situations at CPAS so that you would know what the policy is. And if they're straying from the policy, then you can get on the director and his staff. But if he's following the policies, we got to support him because that's what the policy is. And, just have to let the public know that. And if it needs to be changed, then you got to start writing legislation to change it. But if we don't, the policy is the policy. And I think we all expect them to follow the policies that are in place. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Dr. Wilson, did you want to speak again? Dr. Wilson, you're muted. Are you speaking to us?
Sorry about that. Commissioner, I'd like to address the issue on enforcement. We have not gotten a lot of complaints saying we were not enforcing certain of our policies, our ordinances. What we try to do is we try to work with people to try to make sure their animals can stay with them, as opposed to us going out and under every situation being so hard fast, we bring the animals into the shelter. We already got 200 in the shelter. Our goal is to try to minimize what we bring in the shelter, not at the sake of public safety or violating any of our enforcement provisions. So we do work with people. And yes, we do have repeated offenses, and we issue those. It's a process we go through. We don't, you know, we try to talk to them about being more responsible. And lack of responsibility comes a citation. That's the process that we go through. But be mindful, we only have a few people, ACOs, cover this whole parish, from the Soto Parish line all the way up to Arkansas. We met with the Shreveport Police Department and Sheriff Department a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, and they said, "Well, y'all need to get there quicker." Well, to get there quick, we got to add more people. So we went to the commission and we talked about this, add more people. Well, we didn't have the money in that fund to add more people. We went to the city of Shreveport, said, "Could y'all help give us more money to help we can fund more ACOs, because the majority of work's taking place in the city?" And they said, "No, we don't have the money to give you." You know, so we understand we have to match the resources to the commitment. So we try to do the best we can with the limited amount of resources we have, and be mindful. This is the health tax, so a lot of the money that comes in for health issues goes to pay for the regional health lab on Crestwell Street, as also the one up in North Caddo. So they don't have an abundance of funds; they have a limited amount of funds. But certainly, we're going to take everything that was said today to heart. The social media aspect, the legislation, the cruelty charges. We'll work on all those issues and get it to you. But we all, at the end of the day, want the same thing. We want to improve the quality of service we provide. We have far too many animals that are unwanted. That's the heart of the issue. And we got to figure out a way to stem that. You know what? And I've had animals in the past. I don't currently have one. But if I had one, I won't mind paying $10, $5 to $10 to get them registered, so that if my dog get out of its holding areas, it will have a free ride back home. I mean, if you love the animal that much, what's $5 to $10? I don't get it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I look forward to talking about the details of these pet licensing, registration, and shipping issues, and how to make them work in Caddo Parish. I think we can probably all come to some sort of a solution. So does anybody else want to speak? If not, I would like to hear a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So move.
All right, let's adjourn. Thank y'all.